Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Baldacci, and welcome to our show, Baldacci On Business. I'm very pleased tonight to focus our show on the challenges of running your own company. And with me tonight are two good friends, two business people who I have enormous respect and regard for. On my right is Sandy Spaulding, who is Chief Financial Officer, Senior Vice President for CorVant, a technology company here in Portland. And Dick Hale on my left, good friend, founder and CEO of Wentworth Technologies, a company in Saco, Maine. So both gentlemen have had a lot of experience in dealing with startup companies as well as very sizable companies. I'm going to ask them to give a kind of a brief background on their companies and their role in trying to create business opportunities here in Maine. This show is sort of a culmination of several shows that we've had, starting with our very first show, which focused on putting together a business plan. If you have an idea, you start with a plan. And then we brought you through the various phases of setting up the legal entity, the tax and legal issues involved with setting up a corporation, raising money, getting loans, to marketing and branding your company. So hopefully those of you who do tune in have found it informative, and we're going to continue tonight with the premise that you have a company, you're in the early stages of commercialization, but you're at a pre-profit stage, and this is where these two companies are at today. So I think this is going to be very informative, because this is where a lot of companies are at and where it's either make or break time. And you don't have the revenue, you're in the market, you have a product, but you're facing with all kinds of challenges. So let me introduce Dick first on my left. Dick, tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about Wentworth Technology. But thanks for being here too.
You're welcome. It's a privilege. Engineer by training, worked at Stanford Linear Accelerator Center out at Stanford in Palo Alto, California. Went to a small company after 2 years, and then the vice president of engineering and I started our own company, which we ran for 10 years and sold it. And this was in the embryo stage of Silicon Valley back in the 60s.
Pre-Steve Jobs.
Pre-Steve Jobs, although he did come in towards the end.
Yeah.
Then was recruited to take over a public company that was in New Hampshire that was in trouble. We got it out of trouble, sold it to a large electronics company down in the Massachusetts area, and I stayed with it, became chief operating officer and member of the board. And when I retired, we had about 8,000 employees and 23 different plants scattered around the world.
Huge.
So one would sort of ask the question, why in the devil are you starting a new company in Saco, Maine?
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, I'd like to say it was some grand vision or illusion, maybe illusion perhaps, but it actually was driven by some good friends of mine who had worked with me before for the better part of 10 years, and they had decided that there was a real opportunity, and they asked me to come out of retirement and help them get it going. So we did that 2 years ago, and as you stated, we are now getting revenues. We designed the product, we started to sell the system, and we're climbing the hill towards profitability.
And the product is a headset focused on the fast food market here in the United States. Great product and great company. Sandy, a little bit about your background. You're a lawyer, but
that's true.
We won't hold that against you.
Thank you. I did start my career as a lawyer in New York City. I'm from Massachusetts. Try not to hold that against me either.
No, we love you.
I moved out of law into private equity, and had the good fortune of working with Bill Bain, Bain Capital's been getting a lot of attention.
Yep.
But it was actually not Bain Capital, but a Bill Bain company. And we bought a Maine-based company called Hinckley Yachts. And that was my first foray into doing business in Maine, and that was in 1997.
Yeah,
I think Angus King was the governor at the time.
I think so.
Yeah, and then your brother came along, and they've all been very helpful.
Yeah.
That was a great experience, I will say. The highlight was I met my wife there, and
Who's a wonderful person.
so there's a story that you can actually meet your future wife when you buy a company. And we sold that company. We really drove it from about 150 employees. It was a great 75-year-old company, fantastic brand that the Hinckley family should get full credit for. But we purchased it at a good time. It was the late 1990s, so going up into the dot-com craze, everybody wanted boats, and so we grew it from 20 million to 100 million in almost 3 or 4 years. So it was like way beyond our expectations. And then we eventually sold the company. And but that is how I ended up getting involved with the company I'm with today, which is called CorVant. It's very exciting. It's also
Tell us a little bit about
CorVant. Yeah, I mean it's a cloud-based software company. So we're a software company that has cloud-based products. We're trying to deliver sophisticated enterprise-wide technology to small businesses using cloud technology. And it's really very exciting. I mean, everyone reads about the cloud today, and in fact, people use the cloud every day, the public, the retail public. Gmail is a cloud product, but businesses haven't used the cloud that much. So, but it's cheaper to take our product, which is really a service. So you don't buy the software from us. You essentially rent the software. And right now, our primary product is called PureVantage, and it runs boatyards and marinas. So that is how I got involved, and it was started here in Maine by some former MBA principals. And it's really quite exciting. I just underscore what you said a minute ago. This company is at early stage commercialization, which means we have customers that are paying us to run their business, which is a step forward from just trying to develop a product, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers are perhaps at that stage. But we're not at profitability. So I think that's the area that.
And that's really what we want to focus on tonight, is that companies at that stage, and what are the challenges that you as operating officers of those companies face day in and day out. And one of the first issues that I'd like to spend a little bit of time on, and it's sort of a dilemma, when do you push the sales hard versus completing development of the product? So it's a complete product and not a partial product. So, and I know you face those challenges all the time because you've got a lot of engineers. You're an engineer yourself. So just speak very briefly about that challenge, Dick and Sandy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Dick.
it depends on your point of view, I guess. If you're an engineer, you never let go of the product. You're designing it 10 years later and making it better. If we could just tweak it a little bit more, it'll be even better. But as the president and CEO and the leadership of the company, at some point in time, you have to say enough's enough. We're there.
That's right.
And I think one of the best ways to make that judgment is to benchmark your product against the competition. When we started the company, we started with almost a full year of market research, where we talked to the end users about what the issues were and the problems were in the marketplace. And we didn't let the engineers pick up a pencil until we had done that. Then we designed the product to combat those weaknesses in the market and the competition's products. We also bought the full system of our two major competitors, and we used that as a benchmark against which we continually improved our product. And when we were sufficiently advanced from where the competition was, we said, okay, let's go see if we can get somebody else to pay the bills for a while.
And that's where leadership comes in as a CEO. Sandy, do you face similar challenges?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we did the same thing, Dick. We researched the market, found out that in fact the legacy software that was running these businesses was built in the 1980s and 90s. So just say it was old technology, and wasn't, a lot of the customers weren't satisfied with it. So we tried to build it, our product, our service, to be better than the legacy existing competition out there. So that is a good benchmark. But the flip side of that is they've been around for 30 years. And that's the issue here. There's no way coming out of the gate you can have every little nuance or component that your competitor does, because they've been at it for 30 years. But it's, you have to get it to a point where it's good enough, and it's going to satisfy a certain segment of the market.
Right.
You may not get the whole market, and you can create your Gantt charts and look at the market size. But at some point you got to say, we have enough of a product to go after this part of the market, because you need sales.
And then hit the market.
Investors want sales.
That's right.
You want sales.
Yeah.
It's a validation that you have a product.
Yeah.
And so that's important. We do feel it's very important that we can say that people run their businesses on our product, are happy to pay for it.
Yeah.
It may not have everything that our, the legacy competition, the existing competition has, but it runs businesses.
Yeah. And in terms, let's talk about legacy competitors. When you first enter the market with your product, how do you sell against them? I mean, as you say, Sandy, they've been in business for 20, 30 years, and Dick, I know in your instance, the companies that you're competing against have been at it for a long, long time. You're from Maine. You're the new guy on the block. How do you compete? What do you try to do to break down those barriers with your customers? Dick, do you want to hit that one? That's a challenge.
It is a challenge because they own the market, basically.
Yeah.
And beyond owning the market, they tend to own the channels of distribution or the sales channels. So one of the things that we had discovered during our market research, which was not specific product related, but these were fairly large customers, people that were doing $100 million a year, $200 million a year, and they complained that they had never seen somebody from the factory. And they were fed up with the, quote, lack of customer service. So one of the things that we looked at and put in our quiver, one of the arrows that we put in our quiver was, how do we differentiate ourselves? And one of the ways was selling through a direct channel as opposed to selling through a dealership channel.
Going direct to the customer.
Going directly to the customer, because the customer will tell you how to run your company if you're smart about it and you're listening. And in this case, they told us one of the big things was that they never saw anybody from the factory, from the manufacturer, and our two major competitors were removed from that because they had dealt with a dealer network. There was also some inherent problems with the competitors' products, but they were isolated from that customer by the dealers, so they weren't aware of it, and so they didn't respond or couldn't respond. So one of the things that we did was made a conscious decision to, in effect, sell direct. And so we've hired regional sales managers, and we're making sales calls directly to the customer.
Sandy, in your instance.
Well, there are a lot of examples of the challenges of taking on the existing competition. And one of the specific questions you constantly get is, so how many customers do you have, or how many installations do you have? And we used to say, these are our early adopter customers. Well, we stopped saying that because that sounds a little defensive. Now we say these are our reference customers. So here are our reference customers. Please feel free to call them.
Yeah, and you do the same thing, don't you?
We do. The qualification process involves what's called a beta site test. for our product as well.
Yeah.
So we divide our customer base into people that are actually buying the product today, and then we have also a group of installations that are in so-called beta site testing, which could last from 30 days to 90 days.
Do you have a similar arrangement with customers trying to break through, Sandy?
No, we try to sell them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but they're all different. You know, you kind of have this idea that you're going to have this type of customer. You know, you put your whole implementation or installation plan together, and that they should all pay on the same way, and you know, you find out that they don't. But I want to another thing that does come up in this, you know, taking on the existing legacy competition.
Yes.
Is whether, you know, you should try to buy them.
Talk about that.
Well, it's something you think about. I mean, it sounds like in both of our companies' situations, we have the superior product that's the most current. You know, I mean, so
Correct.
someday we'll be on the other end of that. But today we have what we believe is the best product out there.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't have is all the customers.
Right.
So if there was a way to actually, you know, acquire your competition or one of your competition and acquire their customer base, then you could force them onto your product,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially, you know, take out the need for sales and marketing, you know, for 2 or 3 years. The flip side of that is it costs money, and that's a whole nother topic. But
Yeah. I mean, and you're trying to penetrate a national market, at least initially, and then hopefully global at some point. Have you looked at forming strategic alliances with?
We have. We're actually next week. I'm out in California talking to 2 companies that are potential strategic partners,
Yeah.
where they provide products into the marketplace that we serve, but they're not competitive products.
That's
And
another approach.
So they have an infrastructure of selling and installation and service infrastructure that's in place. The international market is one that is actually growing the fastest,
Yeah.
but it's the toughest to get to. And so by selecting some strategic partners that have an international presence with reseller agreements or name branding agreements, it's another mechanism to get into the international markets without having to spend all the money to put an infrastructure in place.
Good. We've got a lot of areas here to kind of focus on. We don't have a lot of time, so I want to try to move this along. We could talk about you know, how to keep vendors at bay and focus on payroll, where you have cash flow crunches. How can you get your employees maybe to be patient on you know, on getting paychecks, because that sometimes there are times, particularly at this stage with your companies, that you know, the money's not coming in.
well, we were talking on the way in about that challenge, and Dick and I know we both have the experience where you really, if you have equity in the company, you're a founder, or you know, or have enough equity in the company, perhaps you can take a payroll cut. It's really difficult to ask someone who's just an employee to take a payroll cut. That's one topic, but meeting payroll is probably the thing that keeps you up at night the most.
Dick?
Absolutely. At this stage of the growth of the company, you are constantly looking at cash and hoarding it if you can. And that means that sometimes you have to make some very tough decisions and triage how you spend the money, but payroll is number one. We ran into a short-term cash crunch not too long ago, and I just arbitrarily announced at our staff meeting that I had just cut my salary by 50%, cut it in half. And I didn't ask anybody else there, but the direct staff are all shareholders, and within 24 hours they had all volunteered to cut their salaries by, I think it was 45% in total.
Significant then.
So people understand if you communicate with them, and it's the
Yeah.
communications that's really critical.
That's a good point.
I do think being, let's say, over 50 and doing what we're doing, Dick,
We're not
is,
going to talk about age.
No,
is
no.
questionable because
We're not going to disclose our ages here. But again, as a CEO of a company that's coming out of the gates here in the market, the challenge of keeping administrative costs down, dealing with healthcare, insurance, is it cheaper to rent or buy your office space, dealing with utilities, IT support. There are so many things that you have to deal with, so many challenges every day. Talk a little bit about that briefly.
again, companies like ours that are early stage commercialization, pre-profit,
Yeah.
means you really are washing cash,
Yeah.
because if you frivolously spend money on something, then you're going to have to raise it somewhere else, and that'll take equity out of your pocket. On the other hand, you have to, run your company, hire people, give them health care, and health care in this day and age is a challenge. I mean, I've heard that Maine is going to be eliminating the 5 and under group. So if you're a small company with less than 5 employees, basically you're going to have to buy individual policies. That's it's just very expensive. That's probably the biggest expense.
And that represents probably the largest segment of our small business community here in Maine.
Yeah,
So
no, it
it's-
does. So it's challenging.
It is. Dick, any response
Oh, just
on that?
you scan down the list of
Right.
your expenses, monthly expenses, and that certainly stands out. I mean, it's more than our rent. It's right up there in the top 2 or 3 expenses.
You
Yeah.
do not need a downtown office space
Do not.
coming out of the gate at this
do not,
stage.
Do not.
Yeah.
So don't spend money on things that you really.
And you've been
Absolutely.
creative in terms of trying to locate space for Wentworth, I know,
Yep.
with friends, and you got to do what you have to do, basically.
It's not the right place to be spending the money.
No, it isn't. So as you're continuing day to day, trying to balance all of these issues, oftentimes you might find yourself so thick in the weeds that you can't see the big picture. You get lost. So how? And we only have 5 minutes left in the show, believe it or not. Very briefly, how do you deal with that? How do you make sure that you're getting the right kind of advice, the right kind of direction? Board of directors, board of advisors. How do you? Dick, do you want to hit that quickly first?
Why do I always go first anyway?
You're smarter.
No, that's right. Anyway, it is an issue because if you are the leader of the company, you're providing the strategic direction, and it's dangerous to get too engrossed at the minute detail level because you lose your perspective.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's a lot of people you can talk to. However, there are within your organization, and this is just one thing I just absolutely have to say.
Go ahead.
Hire the absolute best people you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Don't settle for, as Steve Jobs says, the bozo factor.
Yep.
Don't let it get into your company. Hire the absolute best people because they will take you a lot further than you can go by yourself.
Yep.
And they will help to give you the room to maintain that perspective. Talking to a board of directors is good. Talking to trusted advisors and people that have expertise in the areas that you're concerned about. Do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. It's so easy. Companies at our stage, you're wearing many hats.
Yeah.
You're selling. You're worried about the finances. You're fundraising. You legal issues, payroll issues. Sometimes you just in the weeds so much that it is amazing how board of advisors or just somebody from the outside you have a conversation with them. They'll say something that is just obvious.
Right.
But you haven't stopped at that point in time and said, oh, that's a really good idea.
Yep.
We have a few remaining minutes left. I'd like a little bit of discussion on the issue of your experience trying to bring a company to commercialization here in Maine, raising money in Maine, finding the right talent, operating here in Maine.
I better take this one first.
Take it.
Please.
Thank you. You know, it's challenging.
Yeah.
I've been in Massachusetts and then up here. We're here all here for a reason.
Right.
And we love the state of Maine and the lifestyle. But it's, you know, it is kind of on the fringes of where the economic activity is happening. We don't really have an entrepreneurship tax policy that you know is out there trying to attract more people doing more fundraising, you know, more startups, and we should, because people love to live in the state of Maine.
That's right.
We love living here, and,
Yep.
but it's there's not a lot of not a lot of private equity funds or venture capital funds. You know, there's the same group of people are out there trying to help companies like ours get started. They're doing the best they can. They deserve a lot of credit for what they do.
Yep.
But it would be nice if there was more.
Dick?
I'd certainly echo that. There is money available in the state of Maine, both from the angels, individual investors, as well as from some institutions.
Yep.
But you got to have a great business plan, and you got to hit the bricks and sell it.
Yeah.
But the money is available. People, there's a good work ethic, and there's an image of Maine, quite frankly, that's excellent in terms of the quality of products that come out of the state of Maine. We sell out into Silicon Valley, where I used to come from, and they have a lot of respect for the state of Maine.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I think that's it. That's the
That's
final
it?
word.
Okay.
That's the final word. You got the final word. Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a good
Good
show.
fun.
Excellent.